Normally, the vice presidential rollout is the one day of the campaign. It's about the number two. The nominee gives a quick speech, introduces the number two. Donald Trump didn't even say he'd be the best president if, God forbid, something happened to me. He said, I'm kind of doing this for party unity because a lot of people don't like me. It was bizarre, but a lot of things about Trump are bizarre.
It was astonishing, John, and I think the danger that we have covering Donald Trump is that it's too easy to get lulled into saying, well, it's just Trump. Well, it's not just Trump. This kind of thing simply doesn't happen in American politics, and to sort of see this play out where, you know, the candidate is grudgingly naming his running mate and saying in part he's only doing so for party unity, takes what should have been one of the really important and positive events and it steps all over it. Look, there are a handful of events that candidates can plan for. The VP selection, the convention, the debates. Those are the kind of events where you can, you have a plan. You don't have a plan for Nice. You don't have a plan for a coup in Turkey, but you do have a plan for those events. And when you botch it like he did and make it all about you, it just reinforces his problems. And it's the kind of thing that when he should be getting a second look, reminds people of why they don't like him in the first place.
And it's such a good reminder of all of the issues that Trump has and why Pence was the pick. He was the safest, most boring pick that his campaign advisors could think of, someone that would sort of offer steadiness to the ticket. And yet, we haven't seen, Trump capitalize on that at all yet.
Haven't seen Trump capitalize, please.
And, it just really showed Trump's indecision. I mean, that was one of the things that Trump has tried to sell to the American public as being a decisive leader who knows what he's doing. He's going to make America great again. But he was indecisive running up to the Pence announcement, having this public wrestling match between, I've maybe 2 or 3 candidates I'm still considering. That Pence is not my final decision, even as Mike Pence was in New York waiting for the announcement.
And to say he was always my first choice out loud
It wasn't even
when
clear
you're
that
announcing him. If you have to say it.
It wasn't even clear that he knew a lot about Mike Pence, because whenever he was talking about him, he'd look at the paper. And then he was talking about how when Mike Pence came to Indiana, it was a mess. Well, Mitch Daniels might have something, the Republican governor that was there before. And he seemed to remember that. And he was like, oh, right, the last guy was good, too.
Trump had more energy when he said Bobby Knight.
Right.
When he's talking about Mike Pence. We're going to spend a lot more time about Mike Pence in just a minute, but let's talk about what's about to happen in this hall. Donald Trump comes here, and look, everyone's saying he makes missteps. Everyone's saying he says things. Donald Trump comes here in a very competitive position. If the election were today, Donald Trump might just win. He's in a very competitive position, so the stakes here are huge. Here's number one challenge for Donald Trump. As you just noted, a lot of voters don't like him. A lot of voters are worried about him. Look at these numbers. He needs to use the entertainment here and the speaking program here. I don't say that sarcastically. That's what you do at a convention, to change these. Among all voters, 60% have an unfavorable opinion of Donald Trump. 62% of women have an unfavorable view of Donald Trump. 65% of Latinos, 87% of African Americans. So challenge number one for Donald Trump has to be to that second look you were just talking about. Give me a second chance. Think again. Meet me in a broader fashion.
Yeah, and we know the Republicans are going to basically go after Hillary Clinton, assassinate her character, attack her pretty ferociously throughout the week, and her numbers will go down. But we don't know is how they will sell Donald Trump to the American public. What his challenge is going to be is to convince the American public that he is ready. He can be commander-in-chief, because when you look at polls also, they give Hillary Clinton the edge on experience and being ready to take the job on day one. These people, the speakers, will have to sell Donald Trump and make him viewed as someone who could be in the Oval Office.
I mean, this really is a reintroduction, because if Donald Trump, the entertainer, has been part of the United States for a really long time, for the part of the entertainment, but now he needs to look like a statesman, look like someone that people can trust to do pretty much everything.
And that's why the rollout was such a blown opportunity, because obviously Trump advisors are worried so much about that critical demographic of married women aged 35 to 55 who are worried about Donald Trump's temperament. Picking Pence was supposed to show that in the moment he would make the safe decision. And because of the way it all rolled out, they weren't able to really enforce that message.
It also showed to the idea that they're trying to keep Donald Trump on a script. And he had the script for Pence today. Look up. Script for Pence, look up. One of the things we do know will come here, and Trump sounded this yesterday with Mike Pence, is after recent events, whether we want to go far back to San Bernardino, whether we want to talk about Dallas, whether we want to talk about the terrorism overseas, including Nice over the weekend, is Donald Trump wants to project an image that we need a stronger, tougher government. Listen to him yesterday with Mike Pence at his side saying, this convention will prove to you, you want us to run the country.
You saw it the other day with the truck screaming out the window. You heard what he was screaming out the window. You saw it in San Bernardino. You saw it at the World Trade Center. You saw it in Orlando. You saw it in Paris. You see it all over. And Hillary is a weak person. We are the law and order candidates, and we're the law and order party.
Help me with that balance, because they do think this helps them. It's tough. Law and order, people are anxious and they're scared. But when you're trying to get people to step back and like you more as a person, is that in some ways sort of a
Yeah, when you're
conflict?
standing up there, you're saying we're the law and order party. It's pulled straight from 1968, not
Yeah, very much so,
2016. Does that appeal to some folks? Yes, absolutely. That's why he's doing it. Look, strongman politics has its appeal. That's why he's the nominee in part today. But there's no question that it has a downside too. And when times are serious, people can be a little bit nervous about somebody who they are uncertain about having his hand on the red button. But John, that said, she has to find a way to project strength and security, and because every time there's one of these incidents, it's clear what he's going to do. He's going to seize on it relentlessly and talk about it in ways that most candidates wouldn't do. It's saying things like, it's going to get worse, this is really bad. I mean, that's his style, and it's, it might turn off some folks, but it also has its appeal.
Quickly, before we take a quick break, there was a lot of talk weeks ago about a coup here. Is there anyone who believes the Never Trump forces have any steam left? We'll have some drama, we'll have some protests, some people will get attention, but they don't have the votes, right?
They don't have the vote.
No way.
They don't have the votes, no way.
Less effective than Turkey.
All right.